Oh, happy day. Hello, everyone. This is Missionary Mildred. Just want to say hello, good morning, good evening, happy day. First of all, giving honor to the Spirit of Christ. Just want to say hello again. Want to honor God. Gotta honor God. God is such a good God. I thank God for waking me up this morning. I thank God for being in your presence, in your midst. I give honor to the great King, Jesus Christ of Nazareth. I thank God for each one of you today, and I hope each and every one is feeling great, fantastic. I feel good, and I'm just happy to be here again. Today's lesson comes from a very inspirational place in my heart. When you go through things in life, you can speak on them. I've had some experience with this lesson, and in fact, this whole month and last month has been a month. This whole since I guess January came, it's been some trying times. It's been storms, it's been funerals, it's been bereavement, it's been consolement, it's been trying. And you know what? When times like that come, you got to lean on God. And I truly want to lean on God in your midst. And whoever out there is going through stuff, I commend you in the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth that you keep on going. Don't get tired. Don't get weary in well doing because God is with you. Jesus is with you. He's keeping us in these last and evil days. I also want to give honor to my oldest daughter. My oldest daughter and I was talking. We was talking about the different things that people go through in their every life, in their days, and their, things that they go through every day. It's called life. We all are going to go through things, and we can't avoid going through them. And I truly thank God for giving us the strength, not only me but you. Because this is trying times here. And I thank God because her and I, we just sat down, we talked mother to daughter, and she just was telling me some things going on her job. There's so many things going on. There's Goliaths, there's storms, there's people bullying people, there's people picking on people, there's just people just in all race, creed, nationality of life. People just, for some reason, just single certain people out. And in this story, we're going to see how Goliath singled out the children of Israel. He was considered to be a champion. Goliath had beat every battle. He had beat them. He had fought them. He defeated them. He was a champion. His name, Goliath, means exile. And I have a piece of paper here that I'm going to read the definition of exile. And it is something about that name. That's why parents, please be careful how you name your children. You name your children all these crazy names, and then they turn out that way. So the name Goliath does mean exile, Exile, exile. And what does exile mean? It means to banish, expel, deport, eject, forbid, abolish, or just get rid of something unwanted. He was truly unwanted in his town called Gath, Gath. He was one of the Philistines, and he was a champion. He was a champion. He ruled, and he super ruled. He was just ruling all over people. The man was huge, and he ruled. No doubt the people were intimidated with his height. And the man, he was 6'9" tall. That's 18 inches and a span about 9 inches. So that made him 6'9" tall. And like I said, he was from Gath, and he was a Philistine, and he was a bully. A bully is a person who habitually seeks to harm or intimidate or coerce those whom they perceived as vulnerable. When people perceive you as vulnerable, they come and attack you like a bunch of bees. They be all over you. What coerce is to persuade an unwilling person to do something by using force or threats. So when they feel like you're not going to do what they say, they come after you even harder. But why are we want to be Goliaths? Why do we want to take people down? What's the purpose of that? What pleasure do you get out of hurting people? It's so much of that going on in the schools, but I'm going to take it past the school. This is stuff that's going on in people's adult life. They just want to bully people. And it's sad because then when the shoe is on the other foot and God get them back and they get that spanking because they're going to reap what they sow. They can't take it. They cry out mercy. But I thank God for being God because the Bible does say you reap what you sow. Whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap. And that's not only a man, that's a woman too. We go about picking on people, lying on people, just making up stuff on people, having their imaginations and assumptions about a person. That's not good. My dad told me years ago, he said, you know what, Angela? He said, it's a dangerous thing for a person to mess with a quiet man because a quiet man is not bothering anybody. But you know what I say to that? I say too, it's a dangerous thing to mess with a quiet woman who's not bothering anybody. So the same for the female is the same for the male. It's not good. Leave people alone. Just leave them alone. If they're doing things that's not right, God got them. And most people have a conscience anyway. To, we're not reprobate. Just leave people alone and let God handle the matter. I've been faced with a lot of things after the death of my late Dr. Mildred Pearl Isaac Jones. I've been faced with a lot of things. But you know what I've done? I've done so much praying and fasting. Now it's time for me to eat. But I still trust in God and I still will be fasting. But one thing I do love, I don't fear man. I fear God. I fear him who could destroy both the body and the soul. Because I already know I'm going to die. Am I ready to die right now? No, I'm not saying that for that reason. I'm just saying who I fear. I don't fear man. Because man, you can't put your trust in him anyway. The Bible tells us that. So truly, I fear God. I fear God because he could destroy my body and my soul, and I will have eternal damnation in hell. So I'm not gonna be playing the fence like that. If I'm gonna die, and I know I'm gonna die, I'm gonna serve God. I'm going to serve him and I'm going to allow him to fix me and make me into the vessel that he would have me to be. Keep me on the potter's wheel, God, that I may be that vessel that he's molding, shaping, and fashioning. We all on the potter's wheel. We ain't perfect yet. But what I do believe that God has so much mercy. But when a person willfully and just constantly, continuously send out vindictive plots and things against people, God will intervene. He will take care of the matter. Now, if you're just a little slow upstairs in the head and you ain't read the word of God, maybe he'll wink at that. I don't know. I'm not God. But I will say this, all jokes aside, let's get serious and let's take these matters serious. But again, my lesson is called Exile Goliath. And we already have the definition of what his name means. And we know that he was a champion, come out from the Philistines. He was a champion and he was a Philistine. And not only that, from his native country, he was, feared by the people. He intimidated the people. And that's sad that you got to be around people intimidating you all day long. You go to work, you being intimidated. They laugh and tell you, she can't do the work or he can't do the work. They got these little group of people that's always picking and surmising and assuming. They're constantly doing that. And I also want to take it to the church world. They're doing it too. All these churches we got in the world, we got to get it right, y'all. We got to get it right. Okay, maybe our church don't believe in whatever, certain things. And this old church over here might not believe in whatever. But does that mean that we get to look down our nose at one another? Because we got the same God. We're serving, most of us supposed to be serving the same God, trying to go to heaven, trying to keep the principles of life. It's all about doing good and loving your fellow brother and your sisters. We're not supposed to be out here purposely setting snares and traps for one another. We're not supposed to be doing that. And even in this church, maybe this church go to church on Sunday, maybe this one go on Saturday, but we still got to find that middle ground where we love one another. And that's what God wants us to do. He wants us to love ye one another. Now, the name David means beloved, and David was dearly loved. He was loved. And he was chosen by God. But at this point in time, this story, he was just a little young man. And he was just, David had a spirit about him that he didn't let too many things get to him, but he wasn't afraid. He was a little small lad. He was just taking care of sheep. That's all David was interested in, taking care of sheep. And I'm going to tell you something. I think it's better taking care of sheep than working with people, because people got all kinds of spirits with them. Them sheep were so humble, the little lambs. But we got a lot of goats out here too. And it's something when you got to deal with people with spirits of goats. But anyway, so like I said, Goliath was a champion in his own country where he came from, and he had a lot of things going on, and no doubt those people, like I said, was very afraid of him. And on these jobs, people, when you go to work, you want to have somebody as a buddy. You want to have that. You don't want to feel all alone. And you know what? Some people do feel all alone because people teasing them. And then when they come in and miss, people can feel those vibes. They know you don't want them there. So a lot of people I've seen on jobs, construction sites, and men they stay to themselves, and women too, because they don't want no problems. And don't underestimate a quiet person. Just because they're quiet don't mean they're scared. A lot of people, they just quiet just to keep that beast inside. They don't want that beast to come out. Anyway, we need to continuously pray for one another, not provoke one another. Provoke them to love. That's what you want to provoke people to, not get a wrath of anger and words be said that you can't take back. But some people do push people to the limit and to the edge. Anyway, so I'm going to I want to go over here, first of all, to 1 Samuel 17, and I want to start at the 3rd verse. And it says, and the Philistines stood on a mountain on the one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side, and there was a valley between them. And there went out a champion of the camp of the Philistines, named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. Now, he had a helmet of brass upon his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of brass. And he had graves of brass upon his legs, and a target of brass between his shoulders. And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam. And his spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron, and one bearing a shield went before him. Now look at all of that. He had all of this going on. All this stuff on his shoulders and between his shoulders, and a coat of mail, and the weight of the mail was 1,000 shekels of brass. And then he had a staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron, and one bearing a shield went before him. He had an armor bearer. He had all of this. He's 6'9". Yep, that's what the paper said. He's 6'9" tall. But yet he got a little armor bearer in front of him, going out before him. Do you need all of that, Goliath? You got all of this shekels of iron and brass, but yet at the same time, you got a little armor bearer person running out there. But before we go deep into that, let's go over here to 1 Samuel 16. I want to read there first. It says, 1 Samuel 16, I'm going to start at the 6th verse. It said, and it came to pass when they were come that he looked on Eliab and said, surely the Lord's anointed is before him. But the Lord said unto Samuel, look not on his countenance or on the height of his stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord seeth not as man seeth. For man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart. This is when Jesse's sons began to pass through. And Samuel was sent there to anoint someone to be the king. So all the different ones came on out. He said, and God, I have refused him, for the Lord seeth not as man seeth, for man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart. Then Jesse called Abadai and made him pass before Samuel. And he said, neither have the Lord chosen this. Then Jesse made Shema to pass by. And he said, neither have the Lord chosen this. Again, Jesse made 7 of his sons to pass before Samuel. And Samuel said unto Jesse, the Lord have not chosen these. Look at God. And Samuel said unto Jesse, are here all thy children? So he asked him a question. Is this all the kids you got? And he said, there remaineth yet the youngest, and behold, he keepeth the sheep. And Samuel said unto Jesse, send and fetch him, for he will not sit down till he come hither. So here we had Jesse seeing Samuel came over to do this thing to anoint one of his sons king. And he invited him to have some refreshments and eat, as they did, as their custom was, to be hospitable. Those people were hospitable. You go to people's house now, you might not even get a cup of water or a bottle of Deer Park water. You might not get nothing. You might not even get the door open. But anyway, so he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy and withal of a beautiful countenance and godly to look to. And the Lord said, arise and anoint him, for this is he. Look at God. That was the one. This was the one that nobody thought about, the one that nobody cared about, the one that's out there taking care of those smelly sheep or lamb. Nobody thought about him. He brought in all the handsome sons, standing all tall and looking all good. And they thinking they're going to be, I'm going to be the king. They already ready to rule. You know, sometimes people, before they even get the position, they ready to rule. And 9 times out of 10, they want to rule over somebody. It's just that authority thing. They just feel like, I'm the king. I'm next. I'm going to rule. They want to rule over people. They want to intimidate people. They want to bully people. But everybody is not for it. And everybody don't vote for you. People nowadays, they want you to vote for them. They want to know who voting. They're not like the presidents of the United States. When those votes are, when they go in to vote with those ballots, they're anonymous. They don't even know who voted yes or no. They don't even know which president to vote on until they get the ballots and count them up. Nowadays, when they're going for positions in churches, they want to know who voted for them. And then when they find out a certain person didn't vote for them, oh, they come after you like bees in a beehive. And it's just ridiculous because someone said no. They just come after you. They single one person out, just one. And like the hatred comes with it. I mean, people have a right to voice their opinions. We have a right to say no, or we have a right to say yes. We have to agree to disagree in a fashion that our conscience will be clear. I like for my conscience to be clear. But so here we have the story of David and Goliath. And this is the person who fought up against Goliath. And let's see that 13th verse. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brethren. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. So Samuel rose up and went to Ramah. Oh, wow. Now look at this. The 14th verse says, but the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord troubled him. This is sad right here, because here was a man that the people set up, and now the Spirit of God went away from him. David was the one who, went forward. And it's so sad because David was Saul's armor bearer. He was his armor bearer. And the story goes into how even after David fought Goliath, that Saul looked at him from then on with an evil eye. That's an eye of jealousy. There's a lot of people jealous over people because they can speak good, because they can get people. Some people got away with people that they can talk with them and encourage them, and just God is with them. And then some people got a way of just antagonizing people. They want to say, look, please leave me alone. But people just go ahead and deal with them because they figured after a while they'll get tired of talking and they'll leave them alone. But you can't bully. It's called bullying, really. Intimidating people, antagonizing people, forcing people. What kind of life is that? You ruling like a dictator. That's what you're doing. And it's a lot of people like that in this world. So that 21st verse says, and David came to Saul and stood before him, and he loved him greatly. And he became his armor bearer. David loved this man. He loved him. Brotherly love. He became his armor bearer, not knowing this man was going to hate his guts down the road. And Saul sent to Jesse, saying, let David, I pray thee, stand before me, for he hath found favor in my sight. He found favor then because there was no need for him to, have the jealous eye. But the jealous eye did come. And it came to pass when the evil spirit from God was upon Saul, that David took in heart and played with his hand. So Saul was refreshed and was well, and the evil spirit departed from him. So look at God. Although an evil spirit would come upon him, David loved him so much he knew which chords to pull on that harp. I mean, he probably was stringing that thing. He probably could just look at that man. So the evil spirit come ring, 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 ring. He probably just did it because he was anointed. I believe his hands was anointed to place spirits off in people. Your hands got to be anointed. So now I'm going to go to 1 Samuel, the 17th chapter. And I'm going to start at 1, the first verse. So it says, now the Philistines gathered together their armies to battle and were gathered together at Shokoth, which belonged to Judah, and pitched between Shokoth and Azekah and Ephraim. And Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together and pitched by the valley of Elah, and set the battle in array against the Philistines. Now remember, the Philistines was on one side, and the children of Israel was on the other side. And the Philistines stood on a mountain on the one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side. And there was a valley between them. So there was something separating them from one another. And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines named Goliath of Gath, as I said earlier, whose height was 6 cubits and a span, which made him 6 foot 9 inches. I have jumped in a pool of water. I pencil dropped. Just like this. I'm going to take this red pen, and I was standing on the edge because my instructor instructed us to dive, do a pencil dive. So this is the ledge here. My hand is the ledge. And I had to pencil drop. And a pencil drop is like, whoop. And I did it. And when I went all the way down, now I'm 5'7", I felt the bottom of that pool. That was the first time in my life that I have felt the bottom of a pool. In 6 foot water, that's deep. That is really deep. But I thank God he had his hands on me. And so 6 foot and 9 inches is pretty tall. But I have swam in 13 feet of water. It's just swimming across. Now, I don't go scuba diving. I ain't crazy. I can't. You got to have gear for that because the lungs will not be able to hold all of that water. So anyway, he had an helmet of brass upon his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail. We already went through all of how his attire was. And anyway, so I want to talk a little bit about what the situation was with him. And then we're going to go past all of that. Let's get on down here to where his armor bearer. Let's go to the 8th verse. It says, and he stood, and this was Goliath, and he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel and said unto them, why are ye come out to set your battle in array? Am not I a Philistine, and ye servants to Saul? Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. Come on down. They say on Price is Right. Come on down. Goliath was like, come on down. Bring me a man. He ready to go to battle. He already got his little armor bearer out there. He's scared. That's who David probably should have fought. But Goliath, to me, if I saw something like that, I probably would laugh. Because first of all, you got this little teeny armor bearer, probably about the size of David. Then you a great big old burly man. A burly man. That's like a burly man fighting a woman. You want to boast yourself over a little ruddy boy? Man, go sit down somewhere. Go pray. But you got people like that. They like to bully certain people. But you know what? It's coming back. Be ready. Be ready. On these jobs, they like to bully women. Oh, these certain jobs, they like to bully them. They like to bully the Hispanic people. It's certain people they were bullies from their mother's womb. When they came out, got a certain age, people must have picked on them. Then when they got to where they could pick on somebody, they started picking. Bullies beget bullies. But you know what? Like I said, be careful, bullies, because there's somebody that's time enough for you. Again, he stood out, and he wanted him to come down to him. If he be able to fight with me and to kill me, then we will be your servants. That's what Goliath said. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then shall ye be our servants and serve us. You gonna be the servants, because he just knew that he was gonna win this fight. So he already had it planned and laid out. Y'all gonna be the servants and serve us, because I'm ready. Come on, give me a man. He done fought every battle, won every battle, beat every foe, took down armies. This man was powerful. He was a champion. He could beat these people by himself. He didn't need the rest of the men that he had behind him. So he came out from the army and from the crowd. He probably pushed his way. All right, let him go through. Let him go through. He's Goliath. He's a champion. Let him come through. He came through there. Who y'all got to fight me? I can only imagine. I like stories, and sometimes my imagination kind of go a little bit with it. But again, and the Philistine said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that we might fight together. He ready to fight. Come on. Give me a man. Give me a man. He gonna force the people to give him a man. All right. When Saul and all the Israel heard these words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. They was afraid. They probably was afraid because of how he looked. Sometimes people make expressions on their face and they send out venomous things, and they just know how you doing. They got more of a growl and a roar. That's what they have. They got growls and roars, but that don't mean nothing. Them roars and them growls, they do not mean anything. Let them growl. Let them roar. You know what? Because most time, there are people barking, roaring, growling. They ain't got no teeth because they just making a lot of sounds, and that's what Satan does. He can growl and roar, but he ain't got no teeth. Anyway, so he wanted to fight. So when Saul and all of Israel heard these words of the Philistines, like I said, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Now David was the son of that Eliphaz of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and he had 8 sons. And the man went among men for an old